business. So yes, this is a open house for Get Griefy Small Business Collective. And I actually stole this idea from one of my friends. I'm actually a military spouse, and I am very active in the military spouse space. And her networking community does open houses all of the time. And she takes the opportunity to invite some of the members of the networking community to share a little bit about their business. And it's really a great opportunity for people to get curious about what that would mean for them if that was something that they decided to pursue. So I was like, you know what, I should start doing that for Get Griefy, because we have so many incredible members, much like fingerprints. All of our stories are so unique, so different, so many different layers and types of losses that we've experienced. And as a result, all of our businesses and ventures and passion projects, et cetera, also all look very unique. And what I love about grief, and I hate to say I love about grief, right? Because people are like, what? How can you love grief? But I've learned to love grief because it's brought me together with so many interesting, incredible people. And truly, I relate it to ice cream, and what you need on each day will vary based, it's almost like one day I want chocolate ice cream, the next day I want strawberry. And what's cool about this space is that there are so many people providing different things that it's really good to get your feet wet and understand the full spectrum, the broad spectrum that grief care and grief services what it could look like, right? And so that's really what the purpose of this conversation is to just gain awareness to all of the different types of grief that exist and how we deal with it as a collective. So if you are unaware of what Get Griefy Small Business Collective is, it is kind of twofold. It's very much a networking community. It's also a visibility community, and it truly is what you make of it. Once you join, you do join on the platform side of the community, which is where all the networking takes place. And there is a feed, there's a group chat, and people are just always looking to collaborate and have people on their podcasts, work together on roundtable presentations. Like, there's just so many different ways you can get involved. And what I've been trying to do is every month give a rundown of all of the opportunities that are available through the Get Griefy side of things. And again, we don't gatekeep over here. We're under the belief system that there's more than enough space at the grief table. And because of our belief system that grief is so unique, that there needs to be different types of supports that are helping all types of people. And so that is truly the beauty of the collective. And the other part of the collective is just access to the members only page on our website. And that's where you can find all of the opportunities that are magazine related. So you can include yourself in a blog post and or Substack on our website between issues. You can list yourself on our website as one of our members. We also have a marketplace. So if you want to put any of your products or services that you provide, you can also include that. There's honestly just so many things that kind of come with the membership. And again, today is not really about selling the membership. It's more just giving you guys the information of what it is that we do and how we come together every quarter to talk about the things that we're working on, but we also come together casually and informally as well. I just got off of a meeting earlier this morning, and it was a podcaster meetup, and it was some of the podcasters in our collective. We just sat and casually talked about some of the things that we're working on. So it really is just a space that provides comprehensive support and cheerleading system for whatever it is that you are pursuing. So if you have questions about the collective, I will be available for questions after this. I really want today to be about the stars of the show, and these are our members. And today, oops, sorry, Anna, I forgot your H. We're going to be talking with Anna and Angela, and truly, they are the experts in their own life. So I really don't want to have to read off of a screen and tell you about them. I'd rather them just jump right in and tell you all a little bit about their grief journey, as well as now that they're in the phase that they're in their life, how they've channeled some of the lessons and some of the pain that they've lived through into something that is helping others. So Anna, without further ado, I would love to give you the stage and just share a bit about all of the incredible things that you are working on and helping people heal.
Oh, well, Kara, first of all, thank you. Thank you for bringing us all together, for creating this small business collective and Get Griefy magazine. And to all of you who have joined, and to Angela, who is also, right, the other expert. Please tell me I'm remembering that right. The other person here today.
Yes,
But thank
you're
you.
right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you all for showing up for yourself and for what you do to make a difference in the world, in your own life, and in the greater world around you. Because I do believe when we do something to heal, improve, grow, move our life forward, we are actually, just by living by example and doing that, we are spreading that inspiration to the world around us. And a little of my backstory. So I was always a helper. From the time I was a little girl, I've always been a helper and wanted to help people and wanted to make a difference in the world. And I was always asking the really big questions, which drove my mother crazy, because so many of those big questions, the whys, there really aren't a collective answer. And there was a 7-year string of significant life loss events that actually became the catalyst and showed me how I wanted to show up and serve people in the world. And that series of events began with the unexpected death of my firstborn son following delivery complications that no one had anticipated. I had 2 second trimester miscarriages after that, 2 complicated but successful pregnancies, a 6-week psychiatric stay for severe depression, and 1 final pregnancy. 6 weeks before that child was born, I discovered that my husband and my best friend were having an affair. And those losses that were of different types just seemed to keep compounding. And hours after I heard the words, "I'm sorry he didn't make it," with regards to my son's death, I had this distinct thought that I didn't want to spend a lifetime mourning him. And what I say is, at the time, I didn't know what that meant, what it looked like on the other side, or how I was going to get there. But I knew deep in my core that we all had the ability to transcend any adversity that we have and to live a life that we fully love and that feels truly fulfilling. I had seen evidence of that. And as those losses compounded, there was a question that drove me forward. And that was, how is it that some people go on to live happy, fulfilled lives following tragedy, mishap, or mayhem, while others succumb to drugs, despair, a life of void, or suicide? That is basically what I was looking for, is that indomitable human spirit that I truly believe and believed then and continue to believe exists now and within each one of us. And ultimately, that single question spawned thousands more questions, and I kept searching for the answers. And they actually revealed themselves in the memoir that I wrote. It's a reflective memoir that chronicles that 7-year period, but not just the ick and the trauma and the painful stuff, but what I did, to the questions that I asked and the things that I did, the awareness that I had that actually led me into healing moments and ultimately to where I am. And when I wrote about that discovery of the affair in that section of the memoir, what I said is, every piece of hope I'd ever held on to before had just been shredded. My faith and trust in God, every spirit and dignity, every spiritual, emotional, social, physical, and academic part of me laid in a heap to be tossed out with the garbage. It never made it to the garbage. I recycled it instead. And through a long series of additions, and revisions and edits on that manuscript, one day those 5 things stood out to me. And they were the academic, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual aspects of our existence. And what I then did was I started asking more questions. And ultimately, what I've discovered is that those 5 aspects of the self, what I call the 5 facets, they are a universal gifts that we are all born with, but what makes them unique is that each one of us has our own individual hierarchy. Whereas most models and concepts look at our behavior and how we're responding, those grief responses, right, that are so unique. As Kara said, and many of you have probably heard, they're unique as our fingerprints, right? Ultimately, our individual hierarchy is what is influencing how we see and experience life, and is influencing our behaviors, our choices, and where we stay stuck. And today, I use that model along with some other holistic tools to do speaking, writing, coaching. I turned all of the answers that I found through those questions, I compiled them into a program that I call the 5 Facets Philosophy on Healing. And it is truly all about helping you to understand who you are, what your hierarchy structure is, what is influencing how you see and experience a situation, and to help all of us better understand that it's our wiring that is actually influencing us. And when we can step out of comparison and have more compassion for ourselves and one another, our healing becomes exponential. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Thank you so much.
That's a big nut. That's a big nut, Hannah. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know, you have gone through a ton of experiences that would leave so many of us shattered. And, I think it can be a hard topic to talk about how we channel our pain into purpose. But ultimately, I think that is something that we're all interested in because that's why we're here, right? And so I know not everyone's called to create a full-blown healing philosophy, but I think even just hearing what you've lived through and how it caused you to ask those deep questions in life, I think we can all relate to that. And truly, that's something that I ponder on quite often. It's these deep, profound questions that don't necessarily always have answers. And being able to talk through them in a group with other people who understand, it's beyond important to have that space. And so I'm so glad that we connected and we are able to help, share the gifts that you have to other people who are interested in the types of things that you are offering. Because again, it's like ice cream, and maybe what you said really is resonating with someone and they're like, wow, I need to learn more. And then there's other people like, well, I don't know if that's quite for me, but that's okay, right? And that's all part of this conversation, is just understanding that grief and healing and how we carry it, everyone carries it differently. So I'm so glad that you were able to share that with us. And yeah, so much.
Yeah.
So much.
I always say, take what resonates from this person, take what resonates from that person and this person and that person, and then create your own tapestry, which is where, the ice cream flavor comes in, right? You can add in all the things that you want. And that's where the collective and the broad depth of experiences and abilities comes in to really create some magic. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of this, I will be sure that we kind of follow up with ways that people can find you. But now I would also like to share the stage with Dr. Angela Dean. And I know her story is also super coming from a personal place and also a very scholarly, educated place. You're very qualified in what you do, but I would love to just give you the floor and share a bit with us about how you landed where you are.
Thanks. That's a hard act to follow there, Anna. Thank you for sharing. Um, I'm gonna actually use that tapestry metaphor because I love that you threw in there.
Thank you.
Um, if we, my parent, I'm a child of Italian immigrants, and so actually my first name is Angela, not Angela. But, that's okay. Um, I my parents came here. My mom was very, very little when she was came here. You met her, you would actually think she was born and raised here. But my father came here on a boat, and right before he came here, his brother was murdered. And so that was a family story that was always there, and I never really thought much about that story. But there was a lot of loss in our family history with so many deaths, but also non-death losses, including them leaving everything behind right after the World War II. And that kind of formed how I thought about the world, but I didn't realize how much. I had a cousin who had a terminal illness. She was supposed to live to be 8. She lived to be 35. Um, and uh, I mean, I'm old enough that we had to handwrite reports. I actually recently found this report that I wrote about her disease. So I was trying to educate people on thalassemia. Um, so it was always there, this like need to like educate people and find meaning and purpose out of loss. That was always there for me. Um, and then I went on to become a set designer and worked in the theater for a very short period of time. I worked in IT. That was my second career. And then I experienced some losses of my own, death and non-death loss, including leaving an abusive marriage. And out of that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to help people. My grandmother ran a store growing up when I was growing up. And she was always asking people 20 questions. Angelina was named after her. Angelina's 20 questions. And she really focused on getting to know people and how that connection and that story really helped people um, feel heard. And so when she died, we learned that she had just been for years, people that didn't have money for food, she would just hear their story and feed them for the rest of like her life out of her store. And so, but because she got to know people and their story, um, it was really moving. And so I always felt really connected to her, became a psychologist. I thought I was going to work with victims of human trafficking, but it was too much trauma work. And so then I found my way into psychosocial oncology, which is working as a psychologist in a cancer center. And it was um, a lot of non-death loss because there was death loss, of course, with cancer. Um, and I was working as a psychologist in a cancer center in when the pandemic started. It, but a month prior to that was the biggest losing my grandmother up until what I'm about to tell you was the biggest loss of my life, and she and I were super close. And my brother and I grew up in her store, and we learned a lot from her about how to interact with people. And then February 22nd of 2020, which is a palindrome. It's 022220, and my brother loved a good palindrome. He died. He died on that date. And it was about a month before the pandemic shut down the US. He died in his sleep. And that loss literally dropped me to my knees when I found out. I was getting my hair cut and I literally fell to the ground. And then it also emotionally just shattered me and took me to the ground. Um, and that changed me. He was my only sibling. Um, I'm not a crier, so I'm gonna really try, but like I feel that coming on right now. Um, so I did what most grievers do, especially siblings, because we're disenfranchised and nobody asks us about us. They ask us about our parents. And it was right before the pandemic, so we were able to have a funeral, a proper Italian funeral with hired mourners and the whole thing. It was very bizarre. But then the pandemic shut the world down. And so what I did was, while we were waiting for the autopsy before the funeral, I went back to work. It was a really terrible decision, because I was working with cancer patients and their caregivers and bereaved survivors. So I worked, I think, one day and then I left. But then the pandemic happened, and these Zoom meetings that we're now so comfortable with weren't so comfortable then. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but we had to learn quickly how to shift our practice to online, which meant for psychologists working in a cancer center, it's an academic medical center that I used to work in. That meant that our clients who used to come see us, normally cancer patients stop seeing their psychologist once it's towards end of life, because they're not going into the cancer center anymore. They're in hospice, or they just don't have the energy to do therapy. But that changed with the pandemic. And so I was grieving my brother in a pandemic in isolation and simultaneously seeing people literally on their deathbed on the day of their death, because now telehealth was accessible to everybody and it became too much. So November of that year, I left the hospital system. Well, I began my own private practice, which is where I'm sitting in today. Began my own private practice, and then that following March, I left the hospital system, and I knew that I couldn't grieve my brother and do that difficult work at the same time. I still see mostly cancer patients, but I was able to have more control over my schedule and time, and so I started that practice. But I knew that I wanted to do something around sibling loss, because as somebody with access to academic literature, the first thing I did when Tony died, well, not the first thing, but the first thing I did when I got back to work was look up literature on sibling loss, and there wasn't much. There's Christina Zampatella's article, who she and I are now friends, and there were a couple other books, but there was really nothing. And the questions that we got were, "How's your brother?" Or I'm sorry, how's your mom? How's your dad?" And I started this talking about my dad's brother was murdered, right, in Italy before they came here. And I never once, until I was 40 some years old and lost my own brother, really considered what that must have meant for my own father. Because up until that point, my brother's name is Tony. My uncle, his name was Antonio. So Tony. His picture was on the wall, but it never really meant much. Like, and I felt horrible about that. My dad has opened up about how hard it's been, how hard it still is for him 60 some years later to be grieving his brother. And so I knew that I was going to do something. And then I'll fast forward to 2022. I was ready to start something. And I didn't know at the time what it was going to be, but it's called the Broken Pack, named because my brother loved wolves. And then I realized most therapists, most psychologists, most mental health professionals have very little training in grief. And I didn't want to go into it without knowing more. So I threw myself into it. I found the Association of Death Education and Counseling. I became a fellow in thanatology, study of death, dying, and bereavement through them. And I, as of a month ago, am now certified through the Portland Institute of Loss and Transition in grief counseling, with meaning reconstruction, through Dr. Bob Niemeyer, who's amazing. If you haven't checked him out, he's great. Because I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to provide the support that I didn't have, not just for siblings, because I do this grief work in my practice now, but also for siblings specifically. So I founded the Broken Pack, and it's now, our mission now, and I say our, it's loosely an organization. It's mostly me, my husband, and one other volunteer. is a comprehensive grief education platform. And so we have a podcast, we have education materials online, and there's a whole bunch more coming. Community, we have our first book club in 2 weeks. But it primarily started with a podcast that was not going to be a podcast. It was going to be a research project. And I was going to write about it and learn from it and see what needed to happen. But the podcast took off. And so that's how most people know us. We have a pretty active social media. Yeah. So that's how I ended up here. I truly believe that nobody seeks out grief, but that we can learn to reconstruct our lives and build meaning around that, which is why I chose to train with Bob in meaning reconstruction, because it has helped me. Like, not everybody needs to create a platform or find a philosophy like Anna, or, an organization, or get Griefy magazine. And I'm so glad that you did find this, that we're all able to collaborate. But it really has helped me make meaning and purpose. And in the process, my brother, what I didn't say was he was getting divorced when he died. The last 2 weeks of his life, he was happy again. And so that's like the biggest thing that I can say that I'm happy about, is that I got to know him again and being happy. He died happy. But I feel like I know him better now, having done this work, that I carry him with me. Our relationship is better, and the Broken Pack is a continuing bond with him. And so that has become my mission, and I have a bigger plan of where this is going. But we're not there yet. So I know I rambled.
No, I think that was a beautiful summary of all that you've gone through. We do have a question in the comments about the book club. Is it going to run in person or online? And does the book club have a theme?
Yes. So it's called Tony's Corner, because Tony loved to read. In fact, if you want to see a cute 1970s Olin Mills picture of him, it's on my website, of him reading. But it's called Tony's Corner. The first book that we are doing is called Brilliant Disguise by Susan Kellum. And I can share. It's on thebrokenpack.com. If you go to book club, I think it's on
I'm
there, the
dropping
link.
in there, and then I'm dropping Anna's link in there right now too.
Yeah, and it's online. It's $1 minimum, but you can pay what you want. Like, if you sign up for our Substack, it's included for the paid subscribers, but it is an author event, so she will join us, and that will be online. And then I'm hoping to do it every couple months. There's not a lot of sibling loss books, so we'll probably bring in other things as well. But
Absolutely. No, I love how much you've brought up, these reflection moments that you have, that you realize that throughout your life, you haven't always acknowledged grief in a way that you wish that you had. Because I, as an educator, have also been in that position where, prior to losing my mom, I had students in my class, and like after 3 weeks, I remember just saying the most god-awful things to them. And I'm like, what was I thinking? And it's not like I was saying anything that was actually mean or insensitive. It was just that you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that that is also something that is quite powerful when it comes to grief, is that it allows so many of these lenses and thought barriers to kind of be removed. And all of a sudden, the onion just peels back, and you realize so much about the world and about life and how people live and don't live, et cetera. And so, as much as I wish that we didn't have to experience loss to understand that, I am grateful for the opportunity to just expand my awareness and expand my understanding of other people, because that is something for me that I can say confidently has impacted my life in a positive way, is just being able to show up better for other humans. And so I'm glad that you were able to talk and touch on that. And then same with the continuing bonds thing. I wholeheartedly consider this a collaboration between my mom and I. So like, I love that you bring him into all of the things that you're doing. I think that's really special. So it's cool. Good stuff.
thank you.
Let's see. Oh, someone wants to know if you are going to be working or writing a book.
That is on the plan. I just interviewed Dr. Heidi Horsley for my podcast, and every time I see her at the conference, her and Dr. Zampatella, I try to convince them we should write a book together, but yeah, I'd like to. Yeah. It's not.
Absolutely.
She's
Actually,
amazing.
in full self-disclosure, I
Mm.
had a book proposal put together and using literature, and then I was about to send it out, and then I received Always a Sibling by Anne. I can never say her last name.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
um, and I opened the table of contents, and I was like, oh, that is pretty much my book proposal. So I shut the book proposal and put it on the shelf for now because I didn't want to write the same book. And it wouldn't be the same book, but yeah. So
Totally.
yes, at some point.
Absolutely. No, that's good to know that that's in the horizon though. And it's
Mhm.
always good to just say what you're dreaming about out loud, because I think that that is how it manifests and you'll get there. It'll come when it comes. And so that's amazing that you're gonna, that's a plan. Great. Well, everyone, I am so just honored and grateful that people, oh, sorry, I'm just reading this comment. Yes, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to just bring everyone together and share these stories. Again, it really just depends where you're at in your journey. I would never encourage anyone to just start something when you're still in the acute phase or you're just not feeling like it's time yet. Like no one's going to be able to tell you when that time is. I think it's something that you feel within yourself and you're like, okay, I'm ready to turn the page and I'm ready for something more. And when people are ready for something more, that's what we're here for. We're a community of people that believe in that. And I know Michelle is here too. She's actually a member of our community and just likes to come to these sometimes to be able to be a fly on the wall as well. But if anyone has questions about what it is that we do at Get Griefy or how our community works together, feel free to drop those in the chat. We can try to address those. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. It's just a really nice informal conversation talking about what we do and give you some actual specific members and their stories. So again, if anyone is looking for more specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I think that's it. And I am gonna reshare this for everyone. So, but if
I
anyone
will
has any,
say I love the Get Griefy collective because it is so collaborative, and I think most people in the grief space are collaborative, but there are some people that are not. So it feels like a safe space to come to and find collaboration or share. So thank you.
you
Yeah.
you read my mind. I literally have a post getting ready to go out, and I would say like 90% of the people in this space are so welcome. Not in our space. I'm saying in general, the grief space are so open and ready to collaborate and connect. But there are just some people that just gatekeep and they want to stay in their lane and they don't want to have that collaboration. And so I think what's nice about this opportunity is that these are all people that have committed and they're said, no, like we're going to work together. And so I think that you can just kind of jump right in and you don't have to worry about watching your back, right? I just feel like these are people that are committed to doing the work together.
Yeah. And the other aspect that I see too, for some people who might appear to be gatekeeping, it's really they just want to be involved in the way that they're able to show up and be involved. And so they're learning and participating at whatever level they can, and that feels right to them. And there are so many of us who do different collaborative pieces together. I just had an event that I did. Two of the three guests that I had on my panel were from the collective, which is always beautiful, right? And just, I think for me personally, recognizing that part of the collective is you can come in and and utilize the resources and the content there in whatever way is right for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I also recognize that people go through phases too. And this work is not easy work. It's hard work. And sometimes it can be heavy. And I totally understand the need for people to also maybe put that plate down for a little bit and take a break. So that's what's great too, is that when people are ready to pick their plate back up, there's people ready to serve. So it's good. It's a good time. But will I be at Endwell this year? I don't know. So my husband's in the military and it makes things very difficult for childcare. So we will see. I would love to go, but it really just depends on my ability to find someone to watch my kids. So, but but yeah, thank you so much everyone for being here. And if anyone has any specific questions, also feel free to shoot me an email. And I'm just glad that we were able to gather today. It was a good time. So
Thank you, Angela and Kira.
yes.
And everybody else here.
Thank
Thank
you as
you.
well.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.